Oh boy.
Hello, welcome to Hosted Bar. Ooh, I have great shadows. I'll need to figure that out. Um, so, this is the show where Dawn and I talk about our last guest. So Dawn, why don't you start with what are you drinking and some of your initial thoughts about Mr. Matt?
Yeah, so I am actually drinking a whiskey, ginger ale, and cranberry.
Ooh,
Yeah, it's a
very
cocktail
fall-like for a hot day.
I know. I'm like, it sounded crisp in a way, but I learned this one at the airport one time heading to Colorado. Someone was drinking it next to me and my sister-in-law and I were like, we should drink that. So anyways, that is what I'm drinking today. But man, I learned so much from our conversation with Matt. I felt like, I know Matt, I see him from, being a community member, but also I think what was eye-opening to me is just the back end too of what he's dealing with for
Mhm.
business, insurance, how he's trying to bring the most value to his clients
Yeah.
that I was having aha moments and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, how can I help support and do good for him?" Being a great place that we have in the community.
Right.
What are your thoughts?
So first, I also kind of felt like I have it's a ginger day. It's ginger beer with a black cherry and pomegranate shrub that we picked up while we were in Washington. So
Ooh,
essentially it's ginger and vinegar, but it's a good snappy summer drink.
sounds refreshing.
hmm So one thing that I liked about our conversation with him is how willing he was to admit what every small business owner and probably some very large business owners um feel and always are afraid to say, and that is, I have no idea how I'm doing or what's right. I'm just doing the best I can. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And coming to grips with the best you can is the best you can. And that's could be good enough, right? What's the Toni Morris? I think it's Toni Morrison line. Uh, do the best you can until you know better, then do better.
Yeah.
Right. And how many of us get caught up in the, oh, but I should, all those shoulds, I should be doing this, I should what, like, you think I should just know this. Like, wait,
Mm-hmm.
why should we just know this? And it's that recognition that doing the best you can, and then that desire to do better. And then once you learn those lessons, to do better, right? So many of those lessons that he's learning by being the business owner and doing those experiments and tracking them and saying, hey, this works. Oh, hey, this doesn't. In searching for those niches and doing that and just being so open about how he's doing that, I think was really kind of refreshing in a way that someone was
Mm-hmm.
willing to be on and just say this is the struggle. And I think he came through it realizing that he's not alone with that.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's, we can get, society or other people to tell us how to do things and what to do, but we don't get it until we maybe sometimes experience it. And that's where I feel
Mm,
like too, it's like, the best I can. It's kind of like even with motherhood for me. Yeah, I knew I was going to have a baby and it was going to be home with me full time, but until you experience it and you go through the trenches and understand, then you learn from it. And that's where I feel like for him, yeah, he was a great pharmacist. Yes, he saw the business. Yes, he saw
right,
the things, but until he did it himself, like you learn from experience.
right. And sometimes those lumps are a little lumpier than
Mhm.
others. And the sheer will and heart it takes to keep learning and keep going, that that grit that says, yup, that didn't work, but this might.
Yeah.
I think he's doing such a good job of that in a way that is, speaking of heart, so full of heart. being so involved in that community and realizing that is his niche.
Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm like, it goes down to back to like what his values are. You can
Mm-hmm.
tell. It's all about the client, finding, giving them the best service, making sure they're having the right medicine, making sure that we find them the best, financial, you know, a discount even too, if that's possible, like making sure and you're not using the system, and I think that's where too, it's like that honesty and caring and compassionate.
And knowing what you're not, right? Like what he said,
Yeah.
I'm not the discount chain, right? If you're looking for, well, we will look for the discounts, well, we will look for uh, the coupons and things like that. We are not your low cost provider.
Yep.
You are going to pay more because we are going to do all of these other things. If all you want is the lowest cost, then we're not for you. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're also not going to get what we give you from the big box,
Yeah.
because that's not their thing. This is, we didn't talk about it with Matt in this way, but the mission, vision, value statements of your business, knowing who you are, know what your guide posts are, what your touchstones are. So you do that and not get pulled away from that. And I think, the hometown pharmacy versus the, Walmart's down the street, both of those companies know their mission, their value, and what customers are looking for, and they can't get distracted by it because otherwise they lose that, right? If Walmart starts trying to be everything that he is, then they can't be the low cost provider. That costs money.
Mm-hmm.
And so they do a lot of work, a lot of things to keep their costs as low as possible. And so Matt wants to do these other things. He can't. If he wants to do all the service and pay his employees well and do all these things, then he can't be the low cost provider. And knowing that and not stressing as much as you could because you're not being that, you realize, nope, that's not me. That's not who I am.
Yeah.
And I think
And that's where I
a good
think
job
of
of
even
explaining.
too, the Walgreens, it's just get in as many people as possible and get them out quick. And he's more of like, I want to make sure this is the right medicine for you. Like, what's the side effects? Do you know what you're signing up for? Do you know what you're putting in your body?
And
And
hey,
that's
by the
where
way,
too,
I happen to know that you also do, these 3 things that could impact it because I actually know you as a human.
yes.
So, by the way, if you are planning on doing, are you running your marathon this month? Oh, maybe this is something that you need to think about. Or, I remember you talking about, wanting to do this other thing, or the indigestion. Think about, this is drink with milk, but you're lactose intolerant. I know this because I know you as a human, kind of thing that may not come across some of those other ones.
Yeah. I would say that's where he's building those deep relationships with the people to get to know them as a person, their
Yeah.
family, but then also too really kind of being that second eye. Like, why did you get this prescription? Because I know even too that he said that to me when I've brought in a prescription for like what was the purpose behind this, and they kind of extra questioned it to
Mm-hmm.
make sure it's the best choice. Um, and that's where I appreciate that extra level of care.
Right. And you're willing to pay for it.
Yeah. Oh.
Right. And so he knows you are the target audience. So how does
Mhm.
he then pull in more of that target audience? How does he reach out to that target audience? And what else are you looking for? Right. So if he knows you are the target audience and he can do all that, he makes his hiring decisions based on who can talk to somebody like that. And then he looks at what else is this person buying? So that way they can come in and buy the Easter basket and all of those other things. So it makes it easy for them to their lives easier and want to come back. And then, okay, where is that target audience at? How do I get in front of them? Well, LinkedIn ads and Facebook ads may not be the best thing, or certainly not a broad one. So this community thing, and how do I sponsor things where, again, the local, mom who is my target audience. And so by knowing his target audience, it makes all of those other decisions a little bit easier.
Yeah. Well, that's where I think of even too, when you were just bringing up the items in the Easter basket, you know, it may take a little bit of a longer time because they're doing the extra research, which I am more than happy with.
Right.
But then it's kind of like, two birds with one stone. Then I'm getting some shopping done. I'm getting a few items. I don't have to run and do a couple errands. I don't have to go to Madison. Like I can do it all here, or I can find something for myself. I think that's the
And you
part
might get
that's
something for yourself
cool.
that isn't other places, right? He said he was getting those extra like Mount Horeb centric things because he knew his target audience.
Yeah. And he's brought in different things too for like I bought a bracelet there once and it was um a group that was creating care packages for moms when the babies are in NICU or something like that, where it's like he's finding in things that are meaningful and purposeful too, that like people understand why he's bringing it in because it's caring about other people too.
Right? Because it's very based on who he wants his business to be and who
Mhm.
his target audience. Now, he may not put it in those words,
Right.
but that's what's happening there, right? To kind of put it into more, book things that you would read in blogs and books about business. That's what's going on there. It's not accidental. He's looking at, who do I want to have come in? How do I attract them? How do I keep them?
Mhm.
And because he's only owned that for under 2 years, right? I think
Yeah. Yeah.
so. As a young business in a still in that startup mode, that's a scary time because you're also saying not them, right? If you're saying these are my people, you are automatically excluding others, and that can be scary because you just want to keep open, right? He said that I just want to keep going. I just want to stay open. I hope this stays open. And so by focusing, people think, oh, by focusing, I'm excluding this. I'll try to be everything to everyone. But if you do that, then no one knows if it's for them.
Yeah. It's confusing almost. I mean, that's
Right.
too. I mean, I'm learning that too through the entrepreneur world of like, yeah, you can't serve everyone. You can't adjust for everyone. You're not going to know everything either, too. But deep down goes back to what you said earlier. You got to do what the best that you can and serve the people that are aligned to you.
Right. Which is so much easier said than done.
It is.
And it's so much easier to say calmly to other people than to remember yourself.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in those first years where you're looking at your paycheck and you're like, or lack thereof, you're like, I have to write these checks. I'm doing the right thing, because what is hard to realize is that you're looking at the long term, right? This is the infinite game, as
Yeah.
well as just think this, it could be worse, right? It's one of the things, maybe if you had been doing that differently, it'd be an even more of a tight spot.
Mm-hmm.
All those things you don't know.
Yeah. So many of the things, yeah, we don't know. And that's where I think even too, that's where I love too. Yeah, it's just being vulnerable and talking about it. And I think that's for me even gives more credibility to him
Mm-hmm.
because he's like that and he's honest. And I think that's where sometimes some people want to be the expert. They want to tell everybody they know everything and they really don't. And then that's for me where it's
I think you said a great word. You hear a lot of people about being authentic and being vulnerable and things, but I think that all of that, what makes those things matter is it's because it's honest, right? People just want honesty. They just want to know, am I doing the right thing? Am I getting the right thing? And if someone is willing to be that authentic and tell that thing, then you know that they're not putting on a show. You know that they're not, if you know, if you're gonna say, if he's gonna say, I don't know what's going on with my business, I think I'm doing it right, then you know that he's willing to be a straight shooter and tell you things, not because he thinks you want to hear them. And so now when he tells you other things, you're going to believe him more. And so I think all of those kind of what seem like almost buzzwords now with authenticity and vulnerability and all that really boils down to honesty.
Yeah, honesty and genuine, like just
Right.
being a genuine person, and going back to the basics, I think even too, of just like even what you were saying earlier about his business of building relationships. It's back to the basics of talking with people, which not everybody wants to do. They just want it to come, and actually hearing from people and connecting with them and understanding, their purpose too. And I think that's what makes you even more of a leader in the community and stands out more too when you do those things.
Right. And that he was saying he talks to people. What do you think about this? How are you thinking? You like this? And then I love that he does the next step of he actually then looks at his balance sheet and things to say that, because people will, this is something that happens a lot when you're trying to introduce something. You'll ask someone, would you like this? Would you like this offering? Oh, yeah. Lots of people will tell you yes, because it's easy. They don't want to hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
Or they would. And then you ask them, but would you pay for it? Or how much would you pay for it? Would you pay this much? Then people start backing off. And then the next step is, well, to actually look, did they put their money down? Because again, it's easy to say you'll pay for it if you don't actually have to fork over the cash.
Yeah.
So then he actually looks and says, okay, they said they would like it. They said they would pay for it. Did they? If so, I will order more. If not, I don't care how many people say they were going to. If they didn't actually come in and buy it, it doesn't matter. No.
Yeah. Well, I even think of as an example, even with him, is one time I went in there to get some prescriptions or whatnot, and I was getting like a certain protein powder or something. And he goes, no, I really want to know your opinion on this. Please let me know what you think about this. If I should order more or not, and that's where too, he's even followed up and asked me again about it, and I'm like, yeah, we got to talk about this. But that too just shows that you want to make sure you have the great quality and the promises that you're trying to give to people,
Right.
and
But then he does the measure, the next step of the actually measuring it. What gets measured gets managed.
Yes.
So he looks, okay, I heard Dawn say that. I heard she liked it. I heard it. But do I have enough? Is that an idiosyncratic response, right? If he only asked you, then he'd be buying it just the perfect Dawn store, but nobody else.
And
so he has to ask lots of people and measure all of those responses. And then he has to look at those numbers to be like, okay, now that they've said these nice things to me or not nice things to me, did they still buy it? Because if the answer is, oh, I hate it, but they came in every 3 days to buy it, well, you don't hate it much.
Right.
Or, oh, I love it, but you never come in to buy it. Well, then you
must not like it.
Right? You must not love it that much.
Yeah. Well, it just makes me think too, like even with you and him, you guys went to school for specialized, topic, I guess you could say, law school, pharmacy school. That's what you're going to school for. That's what you focused on. They didn't focus on how to run the actual business.
Oh, no, they didn't have that. I had business law class. It told you nothing on how to actually run a business.
Yeah.
Right? They don't teach you that at all. So then you start it and you're like, so there's like stuff that you have to do that's not just legal stuff. Like bookkeeping and things, and that needs to happen. And I think it's one of those things that can be really difficult for experts in a field, and even not experts, but specialists, because they're really good at what they do. And they're usually really, really smart. And so like so much of their work comes easily to them.
Yeah.
Or they really enjoy it. And then they realize that owning a business is not the same as doing the work in the business. Like, that whole work in versus work on.
It's gone. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And every business owner struggles with it, every single one of them. But those who are experts, and you don't have to have a professional degree for this, right? A mechanic has the same problem because they are specialized. They spend a lot of time and effort to hone their craft.
Yeah.
And then they realize that to own the business, that stuff stops mattering. You have to hone a whole new craft.
Yeah. And that's like, very brave and courageous to try and add a new wheel, I think of even onto your car, of like, okay, this is not in my wheelhouse, but I'm not going to give up. I'm going to try this. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to figure it out. If I could figure this out, I can figure this out. And that's where I feel like for him, even too, like he knows that he doesn't know some things, but he's not giving up and he's going to figure it out. And maybe he'll figure out maybe this isn't the right thing.
In my experience, is that the more you're willing to tell people, I don't know this, and especially if you tell those people who you think do know that, and then be willing to listen, you gain so much. Because Spencer Smith just posted this on LinkedIn today, which I thought was great, is he's rebuilding his speaking career. And he's like, I'm going to do it so much better and faster, post-COVID than because pre-COVID, I had to make all the mistakes. Mm-hmm. Right? I had to go down all the wrong paths. And now I can go back to speaking these things because I don't have to go through all the wrong paths.
Yeah.
And then he's offering other people to like, let them, this is the lessons I've learned. Let me help you not go through the wrong paths. And so one thing I think Matt was doing well is saying, I'm talking to people. I'm willing to admit what I don't know, because then they can tell me and learn. And I don't have to go down the same wrong paths they went down. And it's going to serve him so well. And I think so many people get caught up on the shoulds. I should know this. I'm supposed to know this. I'm the boss. I'm the owner. I have to know everything. I'm the lawyer. I have to know everything. And it puts them, it's like a heavy weight, right? Or a big parachute. It slows everything down because you're not willing to say, I don't know. Maybe you do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one thing that you're doing really well with a lot of both your business and your events, is building that space for people to say, I don't know, I need this help. Or I would love to have this discussion.
Yeah. Or to realize too, you're not alone.
Right.
Because I think we all assume we're alone and nobody else is going through this. No one's been through this. And that's where I think sometimes we don't always realize that, even to like, Spencer Smith, some people would think, why, he had some failures? What do you mean? Like, you know what I mean? That's kind of with all the people that you maybe see have always been confident, or you feel that they've, just ran at full speed. Do you really think everybody ran at full speed? No.
No, I have the scars on my knees to prove that. And even when I was running at full speed, there were more than a few times that it came to a very quick and abrupt stop. Yeah. Right? And you're like, oh, okay, pick up. And, sometimes you got to pick yourself up, cry a little bit. There's crying in this, there may not be crying in baseball, but there's crying in business. And then being able to go forward, I think, is a big deal.
Yeah. And I think that's where too, it's like being vulnerable, of like speaking up, but like sometimes too, taking in people's advice, understanding that not everybody's advice is for you, but then also understanding too, sometimes where the roles change.
Right.
So even like with Spencer's example, or even Matt, like one day he's going to be mentoring people, and
I think
that's
we're
the
gonna look.
part.
I think he's gonna be great at it.
Yeah. And that's where I feel like the joy of, you know, entrepreneurship or just even careers or anything. There's always this time where you master things or you learn more things or add more tools to your toolbox that hopefully you can help educate somebody else or get them on the right path. And that's where I feel like too, some people are willing to do that and some people aren't willing to do that. And
And don't and be okay with someone who's not like sometimes you want someone to be your mentor, sometimes you want someone to share and they're not going to. And
yeah,
be okay with that. That's where they
yeah.
are. It's not, don't take it personally. That's their problem. That they aren't in a place that they feel confident and secure enough to share.
Hmm.
Right? We're like, well, that's where they are. That I can get lessons elsewhere. They're not the only source of truth.
Yeah. And there's lessons I think we all have to give sometimes in different
Mhm.
spaces, even if we don't have it all figured out.
And
There's
no one has it
lessons.
all figured out. It's all lies.
Right? Well, I'm like, that's where even like with Matt, there's a lot of lessons. There's a lot of
Yeah.
things from that conversation that he may even feel, sometimes have stuff figured out, but it's like, but you have figured things out.
I'd be interested to know if after that he realized by sometimes like when you hear yourself talk, you're like, wait a minute, I do know that. Or, like you almost mentor yourself because you finally took the time to say it out loud. So I do wonder what lessons he learned from his own uh time. Because I could see a couple times where he was just like, wait, what? I
Mhm.
I do know that.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's even like, I think all of us need that. And that's where even too, for me, I giggle where one day someone said something to me at an event about my first two podcasts. And I kind of giggled to myself and I'm like, I haven't even listened to those again. Like, and so I took the time to listen to it again. And I was kind of like, oh, I did have some good thoughts, where sometimes we need that inspiration even from ourselves.
Well, for sure.
That, you have to sometimes look inner or just to hear our thoughts from the past or current, to keep going and yeah, find that inspiration.
For sure. So I know that you need to get going because you have a very important date with an early release from daycare. So
Yeah.
next week, or not next week, next show, because it's in 2 weeks, is going to be Amy Caldor.
Yes. Amy, she has quite the interesting path of being in the pharmaceutical world, a high leader who went the entrepreneurial route now. She's had some interesting life hiccups and things, but just her perspective on life, but also too, she decided to go the franchise way. And so I think it would be interesting to kind of hear her perspective, but also her journey because it's pretty cool. So yeah,
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. And hopefully by then I'll have better lighting figured out.
you
We'll
look
see.
great.
All right. And we'll see you and Amy next time.
Sounds good.